Please subscribe and you can download this code from description below. Title: Understanding differences in PowerShell and Python outputs for the same command. Introduction. PowerShell and Python are two powerful scripting languages commonly used in the IT industry. While both languages serve similar purposes, there are differences in their syntax, behavior, and underlying principles. This tutorial explores why PowerShell and Python may yield different results for seemingly identical commands and provides examples to illustrate these distinctions. Syntax and command structure. PowerShell and Python have distinct syntax and command structures. One common reason for differing outputs is the variation in how each language interprets and executes commands. Let's compare a simple command in both languages. PowerShell. Python. Even though both commands aim to count the number of DLL files in the specified directory, the implementation and syntax are unique to each language. Underlying system differences. PowerShell is built on top of the .NET framework and is deeply integrated with the Windows operating system. On the other hand, Python is platform independent and relies on its own interpreter. System-specific behaviors and implementations can contribute to divergent results. Data types and object models. PowerShell is object-oriented, and it passes objects through the pipeline. Python, in contrast, often deals with data structures like lists and strings. When working with certain commands or functions, the output data types and object models may not align, resulting in different representations of the same information. Default output formatting. PowerShell and Python may format their output differently by default. PowerShell typically formats objects in a human-readable table format, while Python might output raw data structures. This can lead. When executing the same command in PowerShell and Python, you might encounter differences in the results due to their distinct syntax, behavior, and underlying principles. Let's explore why these differences occur and provide examples to illustrate this contrast. PowerShell is a command-line shell and scripting language primarily developed for Windows environments. It utilizes its own syntax and follows its own rules for command execution. Python, on the other hand, is a versatile programming language known for its simplicity and readability. Python has its own syntax and behavior that might differ significantly from PowerShell. Let's consider an example where we retrieve the current date and time using both PowerShell and Python. In PowerShell, you can use the getDate command to obtain the current date and time. This command will display the current date and time in the PowerShell console. In Python, the datetime module is commonly used to work with dates and times. Running this Python code will output the current date and time in the Python environment. One primary reason for differing results is the default formatting and output behavior of each language. PowerShell and Python might present dates and times differently based on their default formatting rules. Another factor contributing to differences could be how each language handles time zones. Python might use the system's time zone by default, whereas PowerShell might have its own settings or rely on the system's configuration. Additionally, the underlying operating system, environment variables, or settings can affect how these languages interpret and display date and time information. PowerShell and Python are two distinct programming environments with their own syntax, behavior, and rules. When executing similar commands or operations, differences in output might occur due to various factors such as formatting, time zone handling, and environment-specific configurations. Understanding these differences can help in managing expectations and addressing variations when working with different programming languages or environments. Always consider the specific context and behavior of each language when interpreting the results of similar commands. ChatGPT.